The Dawnbreaker emerged from the swirling vortex of hyperspace with a violent lurch, the inertial dampeners straining to compensate for the sudden deceleration. Through the viewports, a sight both breathtaking and harrowing unfolded before Arra's eyes, the war-torn visage of Agronus Septim. The planet hung suspended in the inky void like a bruised and battered sentinel, its surface pockmarked by the scars of decades of unrelenting conflict. Vast swaths of its continents had been reduced to cratered wastelands, the remnants of once mighty fortresses and cities crumbling into ruin amidst the barren landscape. Yet even in the midst of such devastation, Agronus Septim possessed a haunting beauty. Swirling storms of vivid azure and crimson hues raged across its atmosphere, their turbulent majesty a stark contrast to the desolation that marred the planet's surface. "We're coming up on the outer defense perimeter," Zara's voice crackled over the comm, laced with tension. Sensors are picking up an array of orbital gun batteries and early warning systems. Arra felt her heart begin to pound, the reality of their mission crystallizing with each passing moment. They were venturing into the heart of a war zone, a place where countless lives had been lost, and where the line between ally and enemy was ever shifting. "Take us in low and engage the cloaking system," she ordered, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. "We can't afford to be spotted until we're past those defenses." The Dawnbreaker banked hard, its sleek hull seeming to almost skim the upper reaches of Agronus Septim's turbulent atmosphere as it began its descent. Around them, the planet's orbital defenses bristled with menace, their sensor arrays and weapon emplacements scanning the void for any sign of hostile intrusion. But the Dawnbreaker's cutting-edge cloaking systems rendered them virtually invisible, their energy signatures masked and their hull distorted by advanced holographic projectors. As they slipped past the outer defenses, Arra couldn't help but marvel at the technological marvels that had been wrought by the Orion civilization, even in the midst of such chaos and destruction. Their ingenuity shone through. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the Dawnbreaker breached the upper atmosphere, its hull trembling as it encountered the first eddies of Agronus Septim's turbulent weather patterns. "Hang on tight," People Marcus growled over the comm, his gruff voice a reassuring constant amidst the maelstrom. "We're in for a rough ride." The ship lurched and shuddered as it plunged deeper into the roiling storm systems, its engines straining against the howling winds and electromagnetic discharges that threatened to tear it asunder. Through the viewports, Arra caught glimpses of the planet's scarred surface, jagged mountain ranges piercing the churning clouds, their peaks forever shrouded in swirling mists and crackling lightning. It was a harsh, unforgiving world, one that seemed to have been shaped by the very fires of conflict that had raged across its face for generations. And yet it was here that their mission would take them, into the heart of the maelstrom, where the lives of their captured comrades hung in the balance. As the Dawnbreaker finally broke through the storm systems, its sensors locking onto the coordinates of the mining facility that was their destination, Arra couldn't help but feel a sense of grim determination settles over her. They had arrived on Agronus Septim, a world caught in the throes of an unending war. But they were Orion soldiers, forged in the crucible of battle and bound by an unbreakable code. And on this day they would face the fires of that crucible once more. The Dawnbreaker touched down in a remote valley, its landing gear sinking into the rust-hued soil of Agronus Septim with a muffled thud. As Arra descended the ramp, her boots crunching on the gritty surface, she was struck by the otherworldly beauty of their surroundings, towering peaks cloaked in swirling mists, their slopes cratered and scarred by the relentless barrage of artillery fire. Yet even in this desolate place, life persisted. Twisted, gnarled vegetation clung to the rocky outcroppings, their vibrant hues a defiant splash of color amidst the monochromatic landscape. The air itself seemed charged with energy, the ever-present crackle of ionic discharges a constant reminder of the planet's volatile nature. "Quite the welcome," Matt Marcus grumbled as he joined Arra on the valley floor, his gaze sweeping over the rugged terrain. "Almost makes you nostalgic for the good old days of getting shot at, doesn't it?" Arra couldn't help but smile at the veteran's dry humor, even as she felt a weight settle upon her shoulders. They had arrived on Agronus Septim, but their mission was far from over. In fact, it had only just begun. "All right, people, listen up," she called out, her voice carrying across the valley. "Our first priority is to gather intelligence on the lay of the land, who the players are, what their stakes are in this conflict, and most importantly, any information that could lead us to Jack, Nara, and T." A series of nods rippled through the team, each member acutely aware of the delicate balancing act they would need to perform in order to navigate the tangled web of allegiances and hostilities that characterized the situation on Agrana Septim. Over the next few cycles, Arra and her comrades ventured forth from their secluded landing site, making contact with various factions and groups that had taken up arms in the struggle for control over the planet's precious resources. There were the Malaxians, a brutal and unyielding alien race whose scorched earth tactics had left entire swaths of Agrana Septim's surface little more than smoldering craters. Their motivations were simple: to strip the planet bare and claim its riches for their own, regardless of the cost in lives or the environmental devastation they left in their wake. Then there were the remnants of the Free Miners Collective, a ragtag group of humans and aliens who had once worked the mines of Agrana Septim in relative harmony. Now, they were little more than a scattered resistance force, their ranks decimated by the onslaught of the Malaxians and the ever-present threat of the Kidron Horde, a nomadic warrior cult that worshipped conflict as a sacred rite. As Arra and her team navigated this volatile tapestry of allegiances and enmities, they quickly learned that trust was a rare and fleeting commodity on Agrana Septim. Each encounter, whether with a grizzled free miner or a Kidron warlord, was fraught with the potential for betrayal or violence, the lines between friend and foe ever shifting. Yet they persisted, gathering scraps of intelligence and piecing together the puzzle of their missing comrades' fates. It was a delicate dance, one that required equal parts diplomacy and combat readiness, and it tested the bonds of loyalty and trust that bound Arra's team together. For in the crucible of Agrana Septim's unending conflict, alliances were forged and broken with each passing cycle, and the only constants were the unwavering determination of those who fought for a cause greater than themselves, be it the lure of riches, the pursuit of power, or the unbreakable bonds of camaraderie that drove Arra and her comrades ever deeper into the heart of the storm. The intelligence they had gathered from the beleaguered free miners painted a grim picture. Jack, Nara, and Tiave had last been seen in the custody of a notorious band of Malaxian mercenaries, their fates uncertain but undoubtedly dire. The only lead they had was a rumored outpost in the Kraktis Badlands, a region of Agrana Septim so inhospitable that even the hardiest of the planet's denizens gave it a wide berth. "You're sure about this?" Marcus growled as Arra briefed the team on their next move. "The Badlands are a death trap, even for seasoned veterans like us." Arra met the grizzled soldier's gaze, her expression resolute. "It's the only lead we've got, Marcus. We can't afford to let any opportunity slip through our fingers, not when the lives of our people are at stake." A grim silence fell over the team, each member acutely aware of the risks they were about to take. The Kraktis Badlands were renowned for their treacherous terrain, their jagged rock formations and volatile ionic storms capable of shredding even the most heavily armored vehicles. And yet they steeled themselves for the journey, checking and rechecking their gear and weaponry with a sense of grim determination. For they were Orion soldiers, forged in the crucible of battle and bound by an unbreakable code no one gets left behind. The journey to the Badlands was arduous, their transport vehicle buffeted by howling winds and electromagnetic discharges that threatened to tear it asunder. Through the viewports, Arra caught glimpses of the desolate landscape, a nightmarish realm of twisted rock spires and deep chasms that seemed to swallow what little light managed to pierce the perpetual storm clouds that shrouded the region. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, their sensors picked up the faint energy signatures of a fortified outpost nestled deep within a labyrinth of canyons and mesas. "That's got to be them," Zara murmured, her fingers dancing across the control console. The energy readings matched the profile of a Malaxian forward operating base. Arra nodded grimly, her gaze sweeping over the assembled team. "All right, people, you know the drill. We go in fast, we go in hard, and we don't stop until we've located our missing comrades." With those words, the team sprang into action, their movements precise and deadly. Zara activated the transport's cloaking systems, rendering them virtually invisible to the outpost's sensors as they made their approach. The first sign of trouble came in the form of a thunderous explosion that rocked the canyon walls, the shock waves slamming into their transport with bone-rattling force. "They've got anti-air defenses," Jax bellowed over the din, his massive frame braced against the inertial dampeners. "I'm reading multiple launch signatures." Arra gritted her teeth, her knuckles whitening as she gripped the control yoke. "Evasive maneuvers. Zara, get me a firing solution on those batteries." The transport twisted and banked, its engines screaming as it weaved through the barrage of incoming fire. Through the viewport, Arra caught glimpses of the outpost, a fortified complex of prefabricated structures and hastily erected defensive emplacements, bristling with weapons and swarming with Malaxian mercenaries. With a deft series of commands, Zara unleashed a volley of precision strikes, the transport's cannons lancing out and obliterating the anti-air batteries. In a series of brilliant explosions, "We're clear for landing," she shouted over the cacophony. "But we'd better make it quick. That firefight is bound to have drawn attention." Arra didn't need to be told twice. With a sharp bank, she brought the transport down in a narrow canyon, the vessel's landing gear scraping against the rocky surface as it skidded to a halt. "Move out," she ordered, her voice laced with urgency. "Rafe, Kell, take point. The rest of you, watch our 6. In a blur of motion, the team disembarked, fanning out and taking up defensive positions amidst the twisted rock formations that surrounded them. Arra felt her heart pounding in her chest, the adrenaline of combat coursing through her veins as she gripped her rifle with a white-knuckled intensity. The first wave of Malaxian mercenaries came surging over the canyon ridge, their guttural war cries echoing off the towering walls. Arra didn't hesitate, her training kicking in as she opened fire, her weapons report blending with the thunderous roar of her comrades' guns. The battle was brutal and unforgiving, a chaotic melee of searing energy blasts and hand-to-hand combat as the Malaxians closed the distance. Arra found herself at the heart of the maelstrom, her movements a blur as she dodged and weaved, her rifle butt cracking against armored carapaces, even as she unleashed volley after volley of precision fire. Through it all, she caught glimpses of her team, their training and unwavering loyalty shining through in the heat of battle. Jax was a whirlwind of destruction, his massive frame shrugging off enemy fire as he laid waste to the Malaxian ranks with his heavy weapons. Kell, ever the sniper, picked off targets with surgical precision, his rifle barking like a vengeful spirit amidst the chaos. And Marcus, the grizzled veteran, fought with a fury that belied his years, his blade flashing in intricate arcs as he cut a swath through the enemy ranks, his guttural battle cries echoing across the canyon like a clarion call to victory. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the last of the Malaxian mercenaries fell, their bodies littering the canyon floor. Arra allowed herself a moment to catch her breath, her gaze sweeping over the carnage that surrounded them. I hope you enjoyed the story so far. It's just part of a much longer and grander story. Please be sure to subscribe and drop a like too. The next part of the story will be in the top left once it's out.